Apocalypse Rising 2, a game with so little hints at what the lore is that we had to come up with pretty much 50% of the connections in between things to figure out the lore. So in today's video, we're talking about the lore. And if you wanted a recap on what I spoke about last time, you can check out the other video. However, in today's video, we're talking about a lot of the things that I missed in that video. And more specifically, some of the more recent things that give us an insight as to what the current lore is and how the story has developed. Because the map itself hasn't changed, but we do know things that we didn't know before. And without speaking more gibberish, let's start the video. In the last video, I said that the virus was created by one of the governments. However, I missed multiple details. On the map, we can find certain locations where you'll find groups of mercenaries fighting off zombies, but this isn't the part that tells us anything. This just shows us that they were employed to fight against the zombies once they actually hit the islands, meaning there was some form of resistance. People were trying to fight back. However, what truly gives us insight is the fact that many of these mercenaries seem to be affiliated with the government. Either they have weapons that they shouldn't, or that they're in locations where it's under high government influence. This means that these mercenaries were there either pre-infection and were starting to be prepared. And in the last video I said that yes, it is very possible that the governments knew about the outbreak before civilians did. But today, I think I have something that tells us that it was a lot less of a knowledge gap in between governments and people, because many hazmat zombies tend to show us that the disease could have been airborne, and even if it was airborne, it was able to pass through these hazmats. It was something completely alien. This might not be such a scientific caused lab disease, as it could be something completely alien to us, or something within the reaches of our own nature. It could be something as simple as a faster evolving disease than what the vaccines could handle. Last time I theorized that the virus had to have been airborne and that the effect taken instantly. If the virus were to take instantly, then how could there be infected at the oil rig? For there to be infected at the oil rig, this would have to mean that the virus took multiple days to develop, because if not, then how would the infected have gotten to the oil rig in the first place, because no boat would have been able to take them. However, if the infected outbreak took time to develop, the infection would have been centered around the hospital in Ashland. However, there is only one hospital, and it's the one in Ashland. And if this slow zombification were the case, then the military should have been able to deal with the outbreak. Additionally, we can tell that everyone didn't turn into a zombie at once because of the rips and tears on some of the infected clothes. Furthermore, disproving the theory that everyone turned into it at the same time, showing us that it was most likely attacked and then infected through blood or just close contact. Meaning, how could there be zombies on oil rig if there wasn't some sort of mutation? How could it have gotten there if it can't be instant, and it can't be over a long period of time? Alright, stop. It seems like I'm overlooking something here. So basically what I'm saying is that there could be a mutation, but we're not taking into account that mutations don't have to happen to all virus subjects. It could be in a specific group, the specific group that reaches oil rig. Now, to say that it's very unlikely that this happened is, yeah, the truth. The possibility of only a small percentage of the virus mutating and away from the separate group is very strange. But we could think that the conditions that they were at in the oil rig might have affected the mutation process. So we know that not all zombies transformed at the same time, and we can also tell that those who were infected didn't actually get it spread to them, as if we look at every single zombie in the game, they have rips and tears on their clothes, meaning there is one original zombie. There's one zombie in this game that is the original. There's no other zombie. It's one zombie which spread the entire mutation. It only took one to start it. And this brings us back to our original problem. if there's only one zombie spreading the entire mutation, everything started from this one zombie, then how the hell did we get to oil rig? This means that by some fate of God, that zombie swam over all the way to oil rig, climbed it, took control of the passengers, and somehow still control of it. But this isn't the case, because we have weapon crates on top of oil rig, meaning there were survivors in oil rig before the virus came. So how the hell did the virus get to oil rig? Well, I have an answer for you. That mutation separated itself. We can sort of relate this closely to several instances of other types of mutations. Let's take a look at one of the more recent viruses that we've encountered, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19 virus. See, what happened here is we can find the variants that were identified in completely different regions. For instance, the Alpha variant was first identified in the United Kingdom, Beta variant identified in South Africa, Gamma variant first identified in Brazil, and the Delta variant first identified in India. And then we got the Omicron variant, which was identified back in South Africa, meaning that sometimes regions can have their own base mutations. Therefore, the virus could have been intentionally spread to oil rig, as it's a completely separate location, meaning that for it to arrive there, that there was a first zombie on the main islands and on oil rig. Now, the bigger question is, where are these first zombies? Because they couldn't have just left the map, but we don't find a single zombie that doesn't have torn clothes with scratches. And the torn clothes aren't the issue. Of course clothes break down, but skin doesn't. Not in those specific areas around the clothes. So unless zombies intentionally harm themselves when they get zombified, there should be no reason all of them have scratches in very specific parts. Now, of course, Gus doesn't want me making lore videos because there is no lore, but we have to theorize about it. We have to create a theory as to how we have so many zombies on the map, all with scratches, and all somehow still here. Now, in many zombies, we find scratches and we find hazmat suits, and we find a bunch of military controlled areas which seem to have fell first, and I'm speaking specifically Ashland. If this something originated from any origin point, it should have originated from the Ashland Hospital, which is the only hospital we know of in the map. The only different ones is Campground, which we can assume was made further because Campground has certain preparations. Any place that has preparations mean it was made after the infection outbreak happened, because nobody knew, except that one prepper in Hastings, but that's a far-stretched guess, because even he got infected, and he had, an automatic gun, so that's kind of idiotic. I don't know how that happened, unless he was overwhelmed. And this can lead us into so many more theories on that there were supposed to be so many more zombies on the island, they just died out of a feast. However, this counterintuitive theory, the reason why this cannot work is because Gus literally said we're like days after the infection started. It's been a day. It's like a week. A week's gone by and so much chaos happened, but at the same time, so little. To say in a week that we still have freaking power plant up, there's no way that should be up, How is power still up? Nobody knows. Honestly, nobody even knows how we still have electricity running, considering nothing's powering anything, and every single government official is dead. The interesting question here is, since all the zombies were infected, and we have quite a few setbacks, but there's an additional question on where did the helicopter crashes come from if the zombie outbreak was so recent. How do we have helicopter crashes? Helicopters must have come, and this must have been a first place, but these are just random Pacific islands. We have an entire world. Why are we not defending some other place? Europe? All of the US? We're on some random unidentified Pacific islands with buildings that sort of closely look to the US style. The only problem here is that why are the helicopters coming here? Why nowhere else? Are these the only islands that were affected? And how do those helicopters crash? And I can assume that you might be thinking, oh, Polly, that's a stupid question, because the helicopters obviously crashed when like a helicopter pilot turns into a zombie and then takes out the entire rest of the team. Well, the only problem here is, why the hell does the helicopter pilot still have scratches on him? Dude, if one of them could have turned into a zombie. So we have so many loose zombies right now on the map that it's pretty much impossible to tell where the origin point is. If it's not the zombies and it's not a virus, that means there's literally like the 4 separate individuals that caused the entire outbreak. And these zombies don't move fast. If you can sprint faster than the zombies, I honestly don't know who the hell died. Like, if you're sitting on your couch watching a zombie break into your house, you deserve death. Honestly, like, how can you really not get your fat ass off the couch? You don't even have a TV. What are you, like, looking at your wall? I mean, for God's sake, if you're reading a book, there's no, you can hear the outside. So obviously people who knew about the infection, and this isn't to say that people aren't well prepared. For some reason, we definitely live in the US because there's a gun in every single house. Why do we have so many guns? Like, you can go into, like, a store, a laundromat, and they'll have a gun. Why do they have a gun? Who the hell is robbing that place, dude? I'm not, for a hat? Really? Is that what we're doing? And, I mean, crime rates don't seem too high, because if you go to prisons, they have 2 cells. What is 2 cells gonna do? There's so many, I mean, we can assume that there's probably quite a bit of people here, and you have 2 cells in your prison. Also, not even to mention the fact, there are supposed to be way more people here, because the main city, for some reason, has multiple apartment buildings, very small, 2 stories, but that should at least contribute to some parts. Like, it's not that everyone lives in a family home alone. Why are we living alone? Can we make families? Does this mean that no one could have kids here? Is there not a possibility of families? So it all sort of ties back into itself that Gizmanak does not want to develop the lore. And that's okay. We'll theorize. I realize now that I was supposed to talk about the oil rig here, but it seems that it's come to my attention that none of this stuff adds up. Like, none. If you really want to figure out what is going on in AR2, you can't. You really can't. Because so many things backtrack on themselves that it doesn't make itself fair. I would understand if the zombies were faster than us and stronger than us. And when we get bit, we don't really get infected. So honestly, how does the infection spread is beyond me. However, when I was talking to my friends about this, I heard an interesting theory, or more like a guess, that the people that we're playing as right now are special. Not mentally, but in the sense that they cannot be infected with the same infection as the zombies, or, the people that became zombies. That we're the only ones who are, the characters that we're playing right now are the only ones who survived the zombie apocalypse, simply because when they got bit, they didn't turn immediately. And I like that theory, except I do have to point that immediate part. How do we know we're just not turning but more slowly? How do we know this disease isn't like a fungi, like in The Last of Us? Zombie viruses are quite strange in this way because you never know what it could be, especially when you turn so slowly. And additionally, this means that every single special ops patient, or agent, why would I say patient, that gets sent to the island somehow dies to these slow zombies. How do you die to these slow zombies? And the greater question is, no, there is no greater question. I tricked you. How do special forces, rogue mercenaries, how do military-trained officials perform worse than just random civilians? Because when we spawn in, you spawn in on a house, a beach, or in the middle of nowhere. We're basically homeless. We literally spawn. How the hell are the homeless people performing better than people trained to do this? And that's the theory, that these people just sort of came to the island and got turned themselves. If we don't ever see the first 4 infected, that first squad of infected that were sort of spread out around the island, then we can assume that it's a setup from the government. That the government sort of created everything here. That they manipulated it in a way to remove the islands. In my last video, I said this was a war weapon. In this video, I think this is more of an experiment. Honestly, it's impossible to say if it's an experiment on control because they know what they're doing. They had the first 5 patients to figure what the hell this would do to the bodies. If you have full knowledge on what this does, and then you still somehow suffer, honestly, I don't know what to tell you. Because you're not suffering. You're doing it intentionally. They intentionally put those zombies into the forces, into the island. The fact that we're the only ones not infected means we're an actual resident. The zombies that we see in the game were never supposed to be here. They aren't the people who play. Now, of course, it wouldn't make sense for there to be that much empty housing, and there's 30 people in a server, so we can assume there's 30 people max that are, survivors. What we can assume, and what we can tell, is if there weren't infected, and we had that original squad, that means there were definitely a lot more people, and they were turned into zombies. But there isn't a zombie in every single house, which is a bit of a problem, because this sort of means that there's supposed to be a little more zombies. So unless zombies got taken out of the experiment, we don't really know what happened here. And it's greater to say that a lot of places where zombies were made don't really add up. Like the prepper house. Zombies are slow and weak in this game. The only way to die to them is if you're in a corner. And honestly, even though he's in his, corner, 4 shots and that zombie's dead. It can't even figure out how to go up the stairs. So unless in the lore, zombies are an ungodly level of intelligence, speed, and everything that they just sort of got dumbed down, is a question for another video. So, comment down below your theories, and please like and subscribe so you can push me in the algorithm. I would really appreciate it, especially because it took me a while to make this video, and I'm making it currently at like 11 a.m. Wait, no, p.m. Anyway, I'm tired. Please let me sleep, and also, please like and subscribe. Have a good day.